everyone, I have been asked by a few people if I could colour this picture. So I am going to do that for you. It will take a few videos. This one is just going to be a little intro really. What I've decided to do is to use this colour cube card. Now what I am doing with my colour cube, this isn't how everyone has to do it, is just working through the card. So every time I pick a picture and a colour scheme doesn't immediately jump into my head, I grab a card. So I grabbed a card for this one. I looked at it and I thought, oh, I was thinking this was going to be wood here. So I thought, oh, I'd pick another one. And I thought, no, that's not what I do. I'm picking a card and going for it. So what I thought, and actually, because it isn't such a natural match, I thought it might make for a more fun video and a bit more interesting for you. So I've got my card. So I'm going to start off by showing you how I choose my pencils to go with the card. Now Sarah Renee Clark does have software that you can buy where she tells you the best match for the pencils for various different brands. I think there's some Derwent brands, there's Prismas, there's Polys, I think it might be Arteza, I'm not sure, but I can do that myself. So we turn it over and we have the different names. Now this is called white smoke. Now that's, to me that's grey, and I think it's cold grey. So our lightest cold grey is this cold grey one, which is really pale. Now you can swatch this to check. I'll do it. I don't normally worry, but I'll do it so you can see. And the whole point of the reason that these go off the edge of the cards is so that you can swatch it like this. And then I hold the card right next to it and think, is that a match? You know, you're never going to match it 100%. I'm going to make that my lightest. And then I'm going to use, this is cold grey 3. I'm just going to see that's probably that, isn't it? So we can use 1, 2 and 3. I might not use all of these tones when I actually get round to colouring, but what I do is I grab them out of my box, tin, put them in a pile, and then I know what I'm working with, and then I can decide whether to use them or not as I go. It means I can put my tin away. I don't have to think about making choices apart from just from that small pile. So we have our salmon pinks, and I'm thinking that this is probably quite a good match. It's quite orangey, isn't it? This is the dark flesh. We could, you see, use this and then the medium flesh for the slightly lighter tone, although that looks really quite orangey. And this is the no, we'll keep that idea and we'll see if we can match it better with the actual pinks. So I'm thinking the carmines might be a better match. It's quite dark though, because you can't get these pastel-y shades in polys. This is the rose carmine, and I think because it's pinker, I think I'm going to choose that one, and I'm going to go for this. This is the pink carmine. You can see it's a lot darker. I'm just going to go with it because polys don't have the really pale colours. So we just have to do the best we can. Oops. This is the permanent carmine. You see, and it really looks nothing like that. In a way, these might be match better, but I think these are going to work better with our other colours. So that's why I'm going to hold on to those. I think if we go straying towards these orangey tones, there's no orange in this. Yeah. So now we go for our hot pink, which I usually go for the fuchsia, is the sort of brightest colour in the brightest pink. Look at that. And we could sort of pop that there. We could use the, what's that? Is that the light purple pink for the slightly lighter tone? And then for this darker one, it's quite dark, doesn't it? We could do this. That is the middle purple pink. Yeah, I think that's what we'll do. We'll go for those three. The raspberry, I don't really have raspberries in here. We have some reds and things. I'm thinking maybe, I'm just going to try a few and see what happens. So let's just cover those up so we don't get confused. So there's that. That is the magenta. It's not too far away from that. This is the red violet. Again, we're getting, ish. But let's move into some reds. We've got a dark red, which is probably closer, to be fair. But where do we go from there? This is the alizarin crimson, which I think, yeah, those two, I'm thinking. But what would we go for lighter? I'm thinking maybe the madder might work for our lighter one. It's not really that much lighter, is it? I don't think we're going to get that much lighter. I don't think, I'm going to put that madder away. I think it's too close. I'm thinking that that colour there is probably, I know. Is it this? This is the, I can't see the number, 191. It is the Venetian red, I think. No, it's the Pompeian red. I think I'm going to use that. So that's those three. So we've got, I'll summarise the colours again at the end, put those away. And the apple green, we don't have apple green or anything called apple green, but I'm looking at those colours thinking that sort of thing, earth green yellowish. Maybe our darkest might be the chromium green opaque, maybe the May green. I think that's our best match for that. That's easier. It's because I'm more familiar with greens than pinks. So let's go through them. Let's take away this scruffy book. And so for our white smoke, we've got our cold greys, 1, 2 and 3. Okay, that was nice and simple. I'm just going to move my pencils away. You can't see what I'm doing, but it will just, I can put them away. Then I can put these in a little pile. So then we have our salmon pinks, whoops, and I picked rose carmine, pink carmine and permanent carmine. And you can see they're much darker. We can use them in a lighter pressure to keep them lighter, or we can keep them darker. You know, it's no rules here. So that's that one. Then for our hot pink, I used the fuchsia, the middle purple pink and the light purple pink. Okay. For the raspberry, I chose the dark red, the alizarin crimson and the Pompeian red. Okay. And then for our greens, I picked May green, earth green yellowish and chromium green opaque. I often use these three together. They do well. So I've laid them out beside here. You can't see. No, that's not going to help you, sorry. Never mind, you have to believe me, and I'll put the card at the top. So there is the front. You could just use one of each from the front, or I prefer to have the three just in case. Sometimes I'm really not in the mood for choosing many colours, and so I do only do those. But sometimes I like to have a choice, and we've got quite a big picture here to do, so it's quite nice to have a range of colour. Now where I'm going to start is the easy bit. I've got 3 greens and I've got leaves, so I am going to do my leaves green. Often when you pick a card you have greens on your picture and there's no green on the card, so you have to be a bit unconventional. Tried that yesterday with a picture I did. It was a total disaster. You'll see it in my completed pages. I'm not one for hiding and pretending it all went well. It really didn't. I think I've thought it through since, and I know what I could change up to improve, but that's for another day. So I'm taking my darkest green to start with. This is the chromium green opaque, because we have these tendrils and outsides of leaves, and that's where I'm going to start. I'm just going to start at the top I'm going to come in a bit closer, don't worry, I'm going to move my book down. I'll try and keep it all in shot, all the green, and talk you through. Now, these thin tendrils, I find that if you don't use a darkish green, so I'm using my darkest green here, on them, they don't always show up that well. And I prefer to just block them in because they are quite small. There isn't, some parts of them are really teeny. Oh my goodness, I'm really snapping my pencils today. Very heavy-handed. There's no need to press as hard as I am. I'm obviously... Now, with these outlines on the leaves, I always get a little bit unsure as to how to colour them. I've decided today that I'm going to block them in, and we'll do some more interesting sort of shading and stuff inside. Sometimes they annoy me and I never know what to do with them. I used to, when I first started colouring, I would always block them in like this, and then as I sort of gained confidence, I would just ignore them and just pretend they weren't there. But I've gone back to a phase of colouring them darker as a sort of outline and definition of the leaf. I think I sort of moved away from doing that because I was sort of afraid of doing just a block of colour because I thought it wasn't very sophisticated. But now I realise that it really doesn't matter. You can mix it up and it can look really good, just a block of colour. So it just depends how and where you use it. So we're just going to move all round. I'm quite aware that we've probably got a Rooms of Wonder series going on in the mornings, and now we're going to have a different one going on in the afternoon. So I hope it's not going to be too confusing. If you're following both and you're turning back and forth in your book, I'm sorry for that. It was just because it is the book that people have asked me to do pictures from, and it's a book that I am really keen on doing a lot from as well. I've been lucky and had a lot of new books actually, and here I am using one of my old books, but you know, I'm just checking I'm not really not shadowing it too much. It's only just got light and it's a bit shadowy in here, but I couldn't really leave it much longer because my boys are home this afternoon. One of them's going to be live streaming and the other one has got homework, and I thought he might want to come and sit in here so he's not distracted by his brother. So I thought I would get my recording done, or some recording done first thing, and then he can come in here and use the room if he wants to, because he's struggling with his chemistry a little bit. Apparently he says he knows the content, he knows the how to do the questions, but in chemistry apparently you have to have certain words in your answer or certain steps in your calculations and things like that, and if you miss them out you don't get the marks. He said he lost a lot of marks in his most recent test because of that. So it's not that he needs to revise the content, he's quite confident in that, but he needs to make sure that he's answering the questions in the right way. So I suggested he grab some past papers, he have a look at the questions and note down answers really quickly. So not sit down and write the whole essay or whatever lines of information, but write down what he thinks he needs to include in his answer. And then it'll be a lot quicker than actually just doing it in a lot of detail, and then go and check the answers and see whether he included everything he needed to. And hopefully that's a really quick way of sort of getting through it really and learning that technique. I hope so. He thought it was a really good idea. I was shocked. My teenage son thought that I had a good idea. I nearly ended up on the floor, but but it's less work for him, you know, but it's, you know, a way of getting through it quicker, which is what I'm trying to think of for him, because they've got a limited time. I think they've got about 4 weeks until their mocks, so maybe, I don't know, maybe a little bit longer, but not long. So need to have a go and see if he can get that, and then when he does his mock, if he's got that technique done, then he'll do really well, so that'll boost his confidence. So we'll see. It's just now trying to encourage him to actually find the time to do it when he's got so much other homework, and he wants to, obviously he wants to get through it quickly so he can get on and do other things. but we'll see. He's just like me. I didn't like I would sit and try and work and just stare at the page for ages and then just want to go and do something more fun. But we'll see. He did one in his GCSE, some hooping, but his attitude to study has changed this year. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see what happens. Now we're nearly at the end of this. I didn't really need to sort of demo it all. It's quite easy, but I was just chattering on. Now, the morning video that I've been doing is using pastel tint pencils, and someone got very excited about me doing it but hasn't got pastel tints, so asked me. This is earth green yellowish, and I'm going to do the base of the leaves. Asked me if, well, I said, you know, I could do a quick comparison chart for you with polys so that you can use the equivalent pencils. And she was like, oh yes please. So I did it really fast because I happened to have the pastel tint swatch card in front of me, and so I hope you can see what I'm doing. Layering up here and then reducing towards the tip, and I'm just going to do that throughout all of these. So I did it really quickly. It was tricky because obviously polychromos have no pastel tones at all, so trying to find equivalents, what I did was I looked at the colour rather than the lightness, if that makes sense. And so a blacky blue, even though it was pale, became a dark indigo, even though that's really dark, because I knew that it would still work with the other colours that I put it with in my video. So but it was a real quick experiment, so I'm thinking maybe I should do a little proper swatch chart and you know, put it up so you can have a look and see if you want to use it. I don't know. Might be something if I do get thrown out of my room this afternoon while I'm editing, I could just put something together quick, but it's not something that I've done before, so I'm not like an expert or anything. But I could do it in my swatch book maybe and take a photo of it. That might be useful. I'll have a think, because I think it's quite useful because, as I say, polys don't have this is the May green I'm going to finish them off with. Polys don't have a pastels, you know. And what I tried to do as well is to give her a different colour for each one, so that even though there were a couple that were really close and there was no equivalent polychromos, I found her something that would do, if that makes sense, so that she had a different colour for each one, so that it worked a bit better. Sometimes I don't like it if, you know, like the Poly Prisma one that Colour with Claire done, which is so useful. Like for the Prisma cream, I think, or something, one of them has ivory and cream as the same equivalent or something, the same pencil, and that sort of annoyed me a bit, although I realised why she had to do it, because there just wasn't anything else. And the fact that some aren't there because there isn't a match. When I'm sitting there doing a Chris Cheng tutorial with my polys and she's using Prismas, I have to find an equivalent, even if there isn't one on the chart. So yeah, so there's our very first little bit done. We're going to move on and do some more greenery down here. Now, we can mix it up or we can keep it similar. So around the door, I think, I'm just planning. Let me talk you through my planning. I'm thinking, I'm stepping back and actually looking at the whole thing and thinking about it all. So I'm thinking, I've got light greys, where am I going to use them? And all these pinks. Now I'm thinking I will probably do all the plant pots the same sort of pinks, all the teapots and cups in the same range of pinks, all the jars, not sure, it's a bit difficult, we've got tea in these jars, I'll probably do that green, like green tea, just be easier. So I think my background needs to be a little bit lighter than these so that these stand out. So I'm thinking maybe the clock is going to be grey. Maybe that's the best approach. So if all the clocks are greys, that's quite pale. So actually it doesn't really matter what I do with regards to how dark I do these greens, because this will be pale, and probably this bit might be a bit paler because it's further forward, and these shelves might be the darkest because they're tucked in and in the shadows. So that's probably my plan. So I'll probably use my darkest grey in the back here, and then the next one may be on the shelves, and then on the front bits the lightest. And maybe the problem is the light is so light I may struggle to see it, so I may have to change my plan a little bit. But what I think I'll do is start with the lightest, and if it's too light, I might just leave it out and go with the next one, if that makes sense. So that has meant that what I'm doing with my greens doesn't really matter. So I've got this May green, this is the lightest one in my hand. I think around the door I'm just going to do all the leaves in this colour. So let's come back in. There we go. What I'm basically doing today is all my green. So I'm trying to make the base of the leaves a little bit darker than the tip. I say just using the one colour. When you're doing smaller items, it can be easier than trying to swip and swap about. And actually often the reason for me using a colour palette is because I don't want to be spending ages on something. So if I can speed it up, that's all the better. I just noticed we've got a window. And here. Normally I would just do a bit of grey for the glass, but our window frame is going to be grey. So that is going to be an interesting challenge. But I'm looking forward to it. Now I've planned it out, I know what I'm doing. Now I'm doing this quite conventionally with the green leaves. But as I say, you don't always have to. The reason for using a colour palette can be to stretch you. I mean, I rarely do pink. I've got 3 different pinks, well, raspberry, reddish, pinkish in my palette today. I've got to really stretch myself. Now, I can't decide, do I do all of these just in one dark green, or do I mix it up a bit? I think I'm going to do them all in the one colour. I think it's just going to make it look a little bit more coherent, because they're all different shapes and sizes, so I think it just might pull them together. So this is the chromium green opaque. I'm going to use it for all of these. For this one I'm just going to block it in because it's so teeny tiny. For this one I'm going to do a light layer. I'm using a round and round movement because it's a bushy thing, and then I'm going to put a few darker areas around just so it looks a bit more interesting. Here I'm going to lighten towards the tip of each leaf. Yeah, leaf. It's definitely a leaf. Now one thing with the colour cubes that is that you can mix browns, you can mix medium, so you don't have to just use pencil. You know, if you've got a better match in a pen for a particular colour, I'm going to make this a little bit darker at the bottom. Yeah, by all means use a pen instead, or as well, you know. Got another sort of bushy one here. I love Johanna's little trees and bushes, they're so cute. So I've gone out of the line. There we go. I'm moving across, just making sure you're with me. Yeah, it's Monday morning. I was feeling a bit bleh yesterday. I don't know why I was feeling nauseous all day. I think it's probably to do with food intolerance, but I just couldn't think of anything I'd eaten that might have made me feel like that. Ugh. but I was at my mum's, so I was distracted and doing a jigsaw with my sister, having a good right old natter. It's lovely. Her one daughter and her boyfriend went into town with my dad, and my husband was having a nod off. My boys were doing their maths homework. My sister's boy, one was playing with my mum, the other one was watching videos on his phone or with his headphone. So and my niece was asleep. So me and my sister were doing a jigsaw and having a great natter. So that's that. I think that looks quite good, just all being the same colour. You might not agree. Now you could go over the top of that with a layer of May green if you wanted to look a bit more intense, but I'm quite happy with some of the white paper showing through. Now we've got leaves on here. I'm not going to colour that green because I want my pots to all be the same. But we do have some leaves here. I'm going to grab the earth green yellowish just so I'm doing a slightly different colour for these. Now they're quite small, so I'm not going to do any shading, although I'm thinking, is this a bush? Yeah. But what's that? I don't know. I am going to colour it all because I don't know what that is. You might know, maybe it's dirt, but I'm going to colour this as a bush. The fence will be the colour of the clock, I think. I was going to colour the leaves this colour, but now I'm colouring the bush this colour. Excuse me, I'm going to do the leaves in the darker green. There we go, and then this side the same. It's quite easy this, isn't it? It's a nice, it's a really nice picture. I don't know if nice. Yeah, I had some a comment from someone the other day saying he didn't like the word lovely or nice. It's seen as a offensive word in their culture. And I was like, oh. Didn't realise that because I had said something of theirs was lovely. I'm going to use this dark one to do a little bit of sort of shading on the bush. Whereas when I say something's lovely, I mean I love it, you know? Or, yeah, I don't know. It was a bit of a shock really, but hey. I just had to say, you know, I don't mean it's horrible. Maybe they thought it was a sarcastic. I don't know. Right, that's that. And because I've used, I'm wondering, yeah, I'm going to do these in this dark one because we've got the dark colour here sort of framing around there. I think having the dark bits on this sort of frame here as well will make sense. That's my thinking. I hope you don't mind me explaining my thinking. It might be completely mad, but I think maybe it helps you understand what influences my colour choices. I've noticed there's a little petal behind there. So I'm just blocking these in, and again it will tie up with these. Some of the ones at the top, they're not that well coloured, but I rushed it a little bit. There, you know, there's a bit more white paper showing through than maybe should be. But oh, and I'm going out the lines now. But never mind. I'm just doing it my way and having fun with it. I am wondering about a background for this. A little bit of swooshy pastel maybe around the outside after, but I'm not sure whether it will need it, and I won't know until I finished. Okay, so there's that bit. Now we've got these green teas, as I said. Now I usually use just a May green for green tea because it's not normally that dark, so I'm going to do that. Oh, my pencil, hang on, got some fluff on my pencil. Now I'm not sure how I'm going to do these jars because, again, I would normally do them in grey. think we'll draw, we'll make the label slightly different green to this. So I think these are all the teas. I do like a green tea. Now I think this is sugar. Now I like a bit of green sugar, don't you? I'm going to pretend it's tea just because it fits with our colour scheme better. Okay. Now on each of these there's a picture of a leaf. I'm going to use my dark green, the chromium green opaque. But I'm not going to press too so hard. I don't want it to be really solid and sticking out, but I just want that darker tone. There we go. And our last bit of green is down here. I had thought when I first saw this is a carving in the wood and it's going to be brown. Of course I've got no brown, now I've picked my card, but I think that's going to be too difficult. I'm going to make it much easier on myself. So here's my dark green. I'm going to start these. I don't want it too dark, so I'm not pressing too hard. I'm going to go over it in another green to lighten it in a minute, like that. I'm thinking I might do one video per colour, but I might not need that many videos to get this finished, so we'll see how it goes. But I'm going to finish this one once I've done all the green, because looking at how long I've spent, we've already been going for half an hour. So I think that'll be quite long enough. But we might, the next one I'm going to do the grey, because I think it will help me plan the rest more easily if I've done the sort of background. Okay, now I'm going to use the earth green yellowish. I can't find the name on the pencil, there you go, for the leaves. And just finish them off. Oh, I think that's my solar panels coming on. Just noticed my hall lights on. I don't usually leave that on. I can see it reflecting in the window. Turn that off in a minute. Actually, I'll go and get some coffee. I've got a cup of coffee next door. Now I'm going to look, but I think that's all the green. Obviously I might change my mind and decide that I want to do a little bit more green on here later. But what I'm going to do is show you, it's coming out a bit more so you can actually see all of it. There we go. Show you what I've done so far. So there's the card, and here's the greens. So that looks, they're not going to stay, are they? They're going to roll away. So there is our sort of so far picture, I guess. So that's me for today. So as I say, I'm going to do the grey tomorrow, and then I might do another colour as well. I'm wondering what I'm going to do for the flower centre, for example. Yellow. Nope. Oh, a pencil. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Please pop back tomorrow and see if I can mess this up or whether it will keep going okay. Have a really lovely day and happy colouring.